All right. So today's class, we're going to be digging into hormones and fat burning. So there are three major hormones that we're going to focus on today. We are going to be talking about cortisol. We're going to be talking about insulin and estrogen. Now, with cortisol, of course, that's a major stress hormone. And we see a lot of problems in cortisol, especially when we test it. Cortisol, it gets a bad rep. It's the hormone one that makes you feel awake in the morning, which is it's when it's at its peak, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people will have heart attacks in the morning, because on top of the stress that they already have, cortisol is high in the morning, and if they already have additional stress, it drives that cortisol up even higher and just puts a lot of stress on the heart. But it is an anti-inflammatory. It is an immune suppressant. So you want a little bit of cortisol. So people have low cortisol, they don't wake up feeling rested. Maybe they have more generic widespread inflammation in their body. Cortisol is super important. We're going to be talking about insulin. And insulin helps move sugar into your cells. So you definitely need it for energy production called glycolysis, which gives us energy. However, its majority is it's storing it, because your body can only handle so much sugar. And what insulin does is it downregulates all of your energy production in the long run. So it actually slows down energy usage, which means additional weight gain. And then estrogen also, especially if we have too much of it, the body's got to store it. And that actually goes a lot to the gut. So we're going to be talking about quite a bit of that. But if you have cortisol weight gain, you're typically going to put that in the lower belly. If you have an insulin issue, usually a distended belly and swelling all around. And if it's estrogen, you're typically going to put that on the hips, upper thighs, and possibly like on the low back. We see that on the low back. Yeah.
And the hip area, or
yeah, you'll see it, around there. So, all right. So cortisol, the stress hormone. So like we said, it gets a bad reputation. This is an anti-inflammatory hormone. It's produced by your adrenal glands. They're these little bitty walnut-sized glands that set on top of your kidneys. It releases sugar from the liver for instant energy. So that's your stress hormone, right? So it's called a glucocorticoid because that's what it does. It stimulates glucose or sugar release so that you have that. That's your flight or fight mechanism. It's instant energy. So you can't perform phenomenal superhuman feats without it. And it'll turn muscle proteins into glucose if there's not an abundant amount or you need more. It's more important for your body to be able to run away from a situation than to maintain muscle mass. So it can also do that. So you can think if cortisol is constantly high, it's going to remove muscle and increase sugar, which is going to make more fat gain. So getting this guy under control is critical. And it'll make your body store fat because the glucose causes the release of insulin, because it's driving up blood sugar, and then the insulin goes up and you store it as fat. So it can be a vicious cycle. Stress, major cause of cortisol. So there are 7 major symptoms of stress: headaches, allergies, neck and back pain, poor sleep, irritability, digestive troubles, and fatigue. So there is I don't know if I can do this. I'm going to see if I can draw on here. Yeah, draw. So I'm going to show you guys something really cool. Let's see. So if you think about drawing a person, right? This is really bad. So this is a stick figure. And the way I used to always remember this is you say headaches. So you just put an X up here at the top of the head. And then you say allergies. So draw a nose with a little bit of snot coming out of it, right? It's really bad news. Neck and back pain. So you put an X here, and then you put an X on the low back, right? Poor sleep. So this is where, this is a funny one. You draw an eye with the eyelid half shut, right? So groggy there. Then you can, you irritability. So draw like the rays out from a sun. This is honestly how it's remembered in my head. So irritability, digestive problems. So you draw another X where the stomach would be, and then fatigue. So poor sleep and fatigue. So that's just going to be You draw one eye. This is a really bad eye, and you can make that bloodshot. I probably should have used a bigger one, but you're gonna have the. That's really bad. So you have headaches, you got the allergies, neck and back pain. You got one eye that could be like wide open, it's bloodshot, poor sleep, and then you got fatigue, the half shut eye, and then irritability. Right? You can actually do a closed fist, and then digestive trouble. So 7 major causes of stress. So you just learned about 7 major causes of stress and how bad of an artist I am. So that was really good. So
And if you look like that, that's really bad.
it's bad news, right? Some of you are like, that's me. That's a self-portrait. No, now it's just there. I wonder if I can. I need to clear that. Yeah, clear all my drawings. There we go. Yeah. So hopefully you got a chuckle out of that. Breathing exercise for stress reduction. So does anyone know how a person breathes that's stressed out? Any ideas? You usually don't belly breathe. You chest breathe. So if you ever see someone take a deep breath and they breathe into their chest and they expand their chest, that actually can trigger more stress because there's this feedback mechanism of physical positioning and movement and how it affects the brain. So breathing into the chest can trigger stress, but deep abdominal breaths, right? If you breathe into your belly with a 5-second inhale, hold for just 1 second, and then 5-second exhale, that signals your brain that everything's okay because your brain's like, well, we're breathing, it's relaxed, everything must be okay. And what that actually does is it downregulates your sympathetic nervous system, which is your flight or fight mechanisms. And so that can offset stress. Now, one thing of note, if cortisol is surging through your body, you just need to start the breathing to stop the cortisol release, but you may not feel calm until your body has metabolized all that cortisol. Because if anybody's ever had a panic attack or an anxiety attack, you'll know that you can't fight it. You just kind of got to remove yourself from the stressor and then ride it out. And that's unfortunate, but you do need to try to get that thing to stop. So the key to brain health is exercise. So when we're looking at, bringing the stress response down, exercise is a critical component. You'll see better brain function, mood, memory, stabilizing blood sugar. Exercise releases certain hormones, improving your confidence, boosts levels of happiness because it balances out your serotonin. It drops out your cortisol. It prevents stroke and heart attack. It alleviates stress and anxiety, and you get surges in creativity. Now, a key part of exercise is the exercise can't be a stress-inducing exercise. So if you already have issues with cortisol or anxiety, a light jog or some weight training or some yoga or some Tabata can be really good. But if you're doing high intensity interval training, that can actually trigger more stress. If you're doing like a sprint and you're doing long distance running, that can also trigger more stress because your brain is getting that feedback. We're running, we're sweating, we're running fast. Our muscles are being used, we're sweating. We must be running from something. We don't want that signal. So make exercise fun. I think that's a really critical piece. The research is really clear, though, and all the research that I've ever read, the one thing that is abundantly clear is that inflammation is the leading cause of disease, and the best thing you do for your brain is to exercise. But it's also amazing for stress and anxiety. So, talking about stress and anxiety, let's talk about estrogen. So this is what we consider the female hormone. Now, in Greek, it means mad desire, right? And that's just crazy. So it's weird. I think the things that are associated with women get bad names like hysterectomy, hystero means uterus, but then you got hysteria, right?
Hysterical.
And it's hysterical. Like that's, it's like it's totally bad against females. So we're going to stay away from those words. But estrogen is what creates distinctive curves in women. Like we said, if it's too much, it accumulates in the hips. It gives, those distinctive female characteristics. And because women have 1,000 more times receptors than men, women's bodies are very dense in estrogen receptors. Estrogen can actually block thyroid production. So what will also happen is too much estrogen increases your thyroid binding globulins. So it mops up all your thyroid hormone. And so birth control can disrupt it. It depends on the type of birth control. Some birth controls have an estrogen, sometimes they are progesterone or progestin. So, it depends on what you're giving. But this is, when it's working the way it's supposed to, you feel really good, you feel calm. And after menopause, estrogen drops like crazy. Estrogen actually has a little bit of an anti inflammatory effect similar to cortisol. It downregulates a inflammatory marker called interleukin 6. And interleukin 6 has an affinity for calcium. And so when women go through menopause and their estrogen drops, they can't regulate interleukin 6 as well unless they eat like an anti-inflammatory diet. And because they have that additional inflammation, they're going to get osteoporosis or osteopenia. So that's the mechanism by how estrogen helps regulate osteoporosis and osteopenia. Detoxification is, remove the poison, a poison removed. So endocrine disruptors can cause estrogen dominance. So it isn't just about your body making too much estrogen. It can be about, one, your body not being able to get rid of it, or two, other things that mimic estrogen in the body, like pesticides and insecticides, environmental toxins and metals, preservatives that are in foods, medications, plastics. I mean, look at this list. Drugs and creams and lotion and makeup and growth hormones in your food, antibiotics, vaccines, sulfates, all these things are endocrine disruptors, and they can cause estrogen dominance. So you'll have excess estrogen. And excess estrogen can cause heavy cycles. It can cause breast pain. It can cause, that additional weight gain. It can cause acne. There's a lot of different problems, fluid retention and low thyroid. So this will drive up weight gain. So the next one I want to talk about today is insulin. So insulin's interesting because it is a storage hormone. Everybody thinks that they need a lot of it. It's made in your pancreas. It helps lower blood sugar by moving sugar into the cells. So it's taken out of the blood, putting into the cells. So what it'll do, it'll cause the cells to absorb that sugar, and then eventually, if the body or those cells have too much sugar, it's going to stop it from getting in. You get insulin resistance. But any sugar in the blood will hinder weight loss. So you want insulin balance. You don't want too little or too much. The problem is the average American eats about 150 pounds of sugar in a year. So you're just wearing out that insulin. It's constantly spiked. Blood sugar is constantly spiked. So your body is trying to convert that over and store everything as fat. So remember, insulin too much will stop weight loss, and contribute to fat gain. So we've talked about glucose or insulin. We've talked about your estrogen, and we've also talked about cortisol. So a lot of these things have to do with blood sugar or how the hormones affect the body. So now there are 6 fat burning hormones, and these are the guys we want ramped up. Thyroid hormone, that's T3, T4. That regulates your metabolism, right? When your thyroid hormone is awesome, your body temperature is normalized. If it's too high, body temperature goes high. If it's too low, low thyroid will cause weight gain because you don't have the metabolism. But thyroid hormone is similar to growth hormone, and they stimulate your body to make new tissue. So you need thyroid hormone to stay healthy. Growth hormone is huge in repair and helping the body, but these things require energy, right? Insulin, like growth factor, this helps you put on lean muscle mass and burn your fat. We use that as a peptide. It's called IGF-1 LR3. It has an extended release. Testosterone, muscle gain. Glucagon, this helps you actually that's the sugar, glucose in your muscles. And then adrenaline, of course, that's part of your flight or fight, right? So the interesting thing with these 6 fat-burning hormones is if insulin spikes, it suppresses all of these. You can actually have symptoms of low thyroid or poor healing because your blood sugar has been too high and you got too high insulin. So it's really, really crazy. And you don't want to confuse insulin like growth factor with insulin. It has an energy production and metabolism function similar to insulin, but it does not have the full effect of insulin. So that's important to know. So what foods can actually stimulate your fat burning hormones? Fruits can do this. Now, specifically your sour fruits, sour berries, things that don't have a high sugar load. I think, what would you say is some of the worst fruits for sugar burn?
I think the tastier ones like the papaya and the
Yeah,
watermelon, pineapple,
right.
bananas. That's a big one.
Bananas are, that's like, I've talked about this in some of our classes, it's kind of a running joke. It's not to like tease on anybody, but bananas are gigantic and they're loaded with sugar. You don't want to get too many of those. So you want to get low glycemic, or like sour berries are the way to go with your fruits. So sour fruits and then berries like raspberries, blackberries, elderberries, strawberries. Those are really, really good. And then lemon and lime. Everybody knows, everybody does I hear people all the time talking about doing their detox water, but lemons can actually help with fat burn. That's a good one. Apples are okay. Jolene, hey Jolene, use the chat function. Yeah, you like win. So apples are okay. You don't want to do too many apples, but an apple a day is fine. They do have a little bit of a glycemic index, but their overall load, the spike in your blood sugar, is not bad at all. And there's plenty of fiber in apples, and there's good nutrients in apples. So apples are okay. Good question. So vegetables, pretty much any of your vegetables. You want to get quite a few servings. You know, if you want to lose weight, you can increase your greens, your spinach like crazy. Increase that in your potassium, and you'll get that out of your greens. It's an amazing fat burner, but lots of vegetables. Because of the fiber, it lowers blood sugar spikes. It helps regulate the blood sugar and makes it more stable throughout the day. So lots of vegetables. If you did 1 to 2 pounds of vegetables a day, your metabolism is just going to be cranked and your gut's going to be healthy, and the gut has a role in weight loss. So that's critical. Grass-fed beef. Well, why are we saying grass-fed beef? Right? Why do we tell people grass-fed beef?
Well, we just want to make sure that the animal is not in a situation where they're getting growth hormones and growth enhancers and antibiotics.
Yeah. And grass-fed beef versus grain-fed has much higher omega-3 fatty acids, and that helps your hormones, your hormone receptor sites. So you're going to want grass-fed beef. Free-range chicken, again, higher omega-3s, lower endocrine disruptors. So when we say endocrine disruptors, these are anything that can disrupt your hormone balance. And a lot of your endocrine disruptors are created by all these different chemicals. And so keeping those endocrine disruptors lower. I think cage-free eggs. So free-range chickens will make cage-free eggs. And so same thing. You'll even notice that the yolk on these eggs they're like a brighter orange. It's a much healthier way to go. So exercise that triggers fat burning hormones. So growth hormone, these are all 4 going to be triggered by different types of exercise. So if you're looking at any of these, so any type of exercise, weight training, sprints, pretty much any type of exercise can trigger. You just don't want to do long distance. But because you're putting stress on your body thinks it has to do something. And with that increase in demand, it's going to trigger more tissue growth. You're going to put more fuel in between meals to your muscles so you can use it. Big muscle groups are going to make your body, like your quads, your leg muscles, and your back are going to trigger testosterone. Not enough testosterone where for women they're going to get a bunch of body hair, things like that. It's just really using those muscles are really key. And that's gonna follow growth hormone. And then adrenaline is a little bit more intensity, and that releases fat energy from fat cells. You do not want to overdo the intensity on your exercise though, because that can work against you. But these hormones are triggered by exercise. And there's one other hormone I don't have on the list that I talk about in a lot of our talks is going to be irisin. And what irisin is, it's also released by your big muscle groups. That converts your brown fat to white fat. And that's very, very helpful in improving metabolism and fat burn. Thyroid hormone. So I want to talk about thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone controls your metabolism, increases mitochondria, which is used for energy. It will be inhibited by estrogen. It needs iodine to create T3, T4. And the liver activates about 80% of your thyroid hormone, 60% directly in the liver. And then another 20% from the liver goes to the gut to be converted to T3 acetic acid and T3 sulfate, which gets activated into T3. And T3 is your active thyroid hormone. And if you've been to any of our talks, you guys know that we're huge on thyroid health. We look at all these markers in people's blood because it's so key. But it's really important for balanced nutrition and getting some exercise to make sure that your thyroid works the way that it's supposed to. Now, testosterone specifically, it builds lean muscle mass, creates male characteristics. We don't want testosterone to be too high, but your body's going to metabolize that. The biggest and fastest way for a woman to increase their testosterone is to spike their blood sugar. And that's what I mean in a very unhealthy way. You want to get it through exercise, which is going to be the slow increase just to the point that you need. Testosterone actually will strengthen bones in women. And it's really good to offset menopause. But it's good for libido. You need it. It's produced by adrenals in the testicles and even some from ovaries. But too high a testosterone in females, that's what I was talking about. It leads to facial hair, deep voice, and male pattern baldness. And that is usually caused from high blood sugar in women. Their body will convert their estrogen into testosterone. And it's exactly the opposite for men. High blood sugar in men will convert testosterone into estrogen. It's a crazy thing. Growth hormone is anti-aging for sure. It's probably the most anti-aging molecule out there, except for, I'd say, NAD, which is something that we talk about in brain health, but in our brain health class. But growth hormone is anti-aging. It builds cartilage and muscle. It's reparative. If you don't have growth hormone, you don't keep your joint structure. So it keeps your bones healthy. It'll help regulate your fuel in between meals. It's activated by sleep. It aids in recovery and rebuilding, helps with that lean muscle mass, and it is stimulated by exercise. Again, if you spike your blood sugar and insulin goes up, insulin will stop growth hormone and thyroid hormone. And adrenaline is used for flight or fight, but a little bit of intense exercise. What it will do, it's going to release fat from fat cells so you have energy. Fat has a lot of energy, and you're just hanging on to it. So we want to make your body use it. It improves mental alertness. It helps heart rate. Well, it increases heart rate. If you already have a high heart rate, intense exercise is not the way to go. But it helps rise up your metabolic function, so your metabolism will go up. But it's triggered by exercise. And if anybody gets really stressed out by public speaking, so for me, doing speeches and talks does not raise my adrenaline. But for Darlene, it's going to skyrocket, right? Insulin-like growth factor, another one, and we use this as a peptide, and it can be used to help with fat burn. It's triggered by growth hormone, and it's made in the liver. It'll help fuel the body in between meals. It's making you make use of, just like adrenaline does, those fat stores. Insulin growth factor is going to do the same thing. It's going to help you use your fat for energy. But depletion in your insulin growth factor leads to more insulin production. And that'll regulate or cause more diabetes. So insulin growth factor helps keep insulin low. It helps maintain a normalized blood sugar amount. So it's really, really good. I like it. It's one of my favorite peptides. Glucagon, this one raises your blood sugar from fat reserves, controls blood sugar between meals. And too much protein turns off the fat burning effect. And this is something a lot of people don't know. We see people all the time that are doing diets that are too high in protein. And that'll stop glucagon and it'll spike blood sugar in the long run. So you don't want to do that. So just as a review, we talked about earlier the 4 body types. And on this one, again, you can see those. So cortisol is going to be related to the adrenal body type. So you get that low body, you know. I did a consult earlier this morning, and a lady called it her flap. So that's cortisol. Now, women typically put on estrogen body weight, and that's going to be in the hips and thighs. That's the second body type. Thyroid, that controls every cell in the body. So if thyroid's up or down, if thyroid's the problem, you're going to put weight on everywhere. And then liver is going to be insulin resistance, blood sugar. You get that pot belly that's just in the gut. So again, liver body type, a little bit about that. Wakes early, grumpy in the morning, prone to headaches, belching, and tightness, and pain in the right shoulder. I mean, look at these things. These are all related to the liver body type. So over time, people gain that particular body type. Low back pain, easily frustrated. So liver involvement with fat burning hormones. Because the liver has so much function, it regulates and affects almost every one of the fat burning hormones. A weak liver means poor protein digestion. You can't make albumin and globulin. And so this is one of the reasons we always start with detoxification and digestion, because you have to clean up the liver to affect everything else. Poor liver function increases gut inflammation. So it's pretty fascinating. Cranberry drink, we have that on a lot of the apps. We have a lot of people do this. The cranberry drink can be really, really good. If you have your app, you can open this up on the app. And this can be really good for people with liver issues and gut issues because it's really awesome. So if you have any questions about that, just reach out to me or Darlene. The adrenal body type, again, we talked about the cortisol causing the lower belly fat that sags over. A lot of times people are going to get that buffalo hump in the back of their neck. In severe cases, you can be very tired. They're going to crave salt and sugar, especially salts. And if it's really triggering your blood sugar, then you're going to crave sugar. When that's really off, you get dizzy easy, high blood pressure, facial hair because of the blood sugar issues. This can cause osteoporosis because you're just depleting the body. More often, you're going to get viral infections or autoimmune because you're messing with your immune system, right? You're causing suppression and disruption in the immune system. Now, if you have an adrenal body type, you want to get plenty of fats. Fats and pantothenic acid will heal the adrenals. And again, this is why we recommend really healthy fats for people, for everybody, because who doesn't have a little bit of stress in their life, right? So lots of fat from butter, coconut oil, avocado, flaxseed oil. These are all really key. You want to get your grass-fed animals, wild caught fish. Darlene, you like to eat a lot of fish.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of fish do you prefer?
I love cod and salmon, halibut.
Any tips on getting healthy fish?
I tell people just if they have a membership to Costco or Sam's to get the frozen fillets because they're wild caught and it's convenient. You just take one fillet out at a time if you don't have time to go to the store.
Yeah.
Every other day.
Yeah.
To get fresh.
Why would someone not want to do farm raised?
Just because it's got a lot of chemicals. And
Yeah.
what we're trying to do is keep away from that because that adds to our load.
Yeah, for sure. So you want to get good, healthy fish, and you want to do more domestic and not exotic fish. Exotic fish has higher mercury to selenium ratio, whereas, getting salmon is going to have some mercury, but it has enough selenium to offset the mercury, and that's all right. So it's like, writing a check that you have enough in your bank to clear. If exotic fish don't have that, you want to have a lot of selenium, and that's going to be in your domestic fish. But eggs, including the yolk, you want to minimize your sweets. Avoid caffeine and nicotine, especially if you've had adrenal symptoms. Nut butters like almond butter is really good. Your cheese or fruit before bed can be really good. An avocado before bed is an amazing sleep aid. Foods along the glycemic index, like Jolynn talked about apples, it doesn't have a high glycemic load, it would be okay. You want to eat a lot of, you want to get some fats and healthy food before 10 a.m. unless you're doing intermittent fasting. But that should still be based on your cortisol or how you're doing. And then make sure you get plenty of minerals. Your salts are going to be incredible here. Electrolytes, you need those electrolytes. So your big things for adrenals are going to be healthy fats, pantothenic acid, B5, and plenty of minerals. Those are critical. So the thyroid body type, we said the thyroid controls every cell in the body. So you want to make sure that that thyroid is super, super healthy. People with the thyroid body type, their weight is equally distributed over the entire body. They're going to have fatigue. They're going to crave bread. They're going to have loose skin under their arms, maybe ridges in their nails, or maybe their nails are just brittle. Hair loss and thinning. Eyebrow, the outer third of the eyebrow will be really thin. There's fibroids and constipation. So These are all problem like low libido, depression. Just think low energy, right? No one has depression who has high energy, right? Not that's been my experience, and that's for real. And so low energy is definitely going to drive depression. So cold hands, cold feet, constipation, those are big ones. So the thyroid, you want to make sure you rule out autoimmune and take care of that gut. Get foods that are rich in iodine, like seafood and alfalfa, cow milk, eggs, and seaweed. One of the key things is you don't want to wait until you're hungry to eat. Just with the adrenals, stabilizing your blood sugar is critical here. For the thyroid, you want to get about 25 grams of protein. You don't want to get any more than that in a diet because your thyroid can't handle high protein. And we said high protein will cause a decrease in glucagon and spike your blood sugar. You want to limit almonds and corn and millet, like a lot of these nuts. You want to just watch kale. Certain vegetables and legumes will interfere with the ability of the thyroid to use iodine. They're called goitrogenic. But you have to get a lot of them, so you just don't want to overdo it. You don't want your whole day to be filled with kale and spinach and nuts, right? You want to get some variety there.
I think they were saying that it's up to 4 to 5 pounds of that.
Yeah.
So no one does that.
No, it's rare, but it does happen. I had a clinician I was working with, and he had a patient that decided she was going to do kale smoothies for a year. She can do a 1-year detox without any education. She just started doing kale smoothies 3 times a day. And in 2 months, she was in a hypothyroid coma. So can be done. If you set your mind to it, you can do anything, right? Ovarian and testing body type. Now, we said, estrogen, right? So you're going to get the weight in the legs, lower hips, typically some bloating, heavy limbs, decrease in testosterone. So you're going to lose your lean muscle mass. You're going to have more hot flashes, painful menstruation, constipation, infertility, anxiety. This is going to drive a lot of PCOS, endometriosis, uterine fibroids, regular miscarriages. This can be a pretty big issue here because you're disrupting those hormones. You want to avoid estrogenic foods like soy, barley, cherries, flaxseed. You don't want to get those things. Even in flaxseed's critical because not only does it raise estrogen, but it lowers testosterone at the same time. Add estrogen inhibiting foods, things that help clear estrogens from the body, like broccoli, melon, grapes, squash, turmeric, leafy greens. Again, the leafy greens, turmeric, we're huge on that. But these are all going to help gut health. Your gut bacteria, if you have excess gram-negative bacteria or too low a gram-negative bacteria, you're not going to properly metabolize your estrogen. You're going to keep absorbing it. You want to avoid your processed foods. Get higher amounts of fats and proteins, 50 to 75 grams per day, unless at the same time you also have a low thyroid issue. But estrogen dominance can be from a variety of endocrine disruptors, so you want to make sure that your liver and your gut are working great and you're giving them the help that they need. So those are all of our major hormones. The last one is going to be, for men, male hormone health. Leafy greens like spinach, chard, like Swiss chard and kale. Celery need to be a base. Avocados are amazing to decrease cortisol and help with sleep. Avocados are really good for the testicle health. Actually, I think the name in South America is actually like the testicle fruit. So Brazilian nuts can increase testosterone. Lamb can really boost testosterone. But venison, fish, grass-fed beef, and bison can as well. You want to avoid meat with growth hormones added because those are endocrine disruptors. So that's a picture. We started with looking at the fat-storing hormones. We talked about cortisol, insulin, and estrogen. And then we talked about our fat-burning hormones. There was quite a list there. Some of the ones we really focused on were the ones related to the body types and keeping those balanced. So, balanced meal. Keep your digestion and your detoxification pathways where they need to be. Plenty of good nutrients. Minimize your stress. Those are really the key piece of balanced eating is so critical when it comes to hormones. And it's not about calories in, calories out. It's about how foods affect people and the combination of exercise and looking at all these different things. So hope everybody got some great information. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to add exercise, but you just did.
Yeah.
I just finished with a couple, and they had their blood work done, and they made a lot of improvements, but the inflammatory markers were still pretty high. And the biggest change that one of the persons said is, "Oh, I've been exercising every day." So we discovered that he was doing excess exercise.
Mhm.
So that's something that a lot of people might overlook, that it
Yeah.
is part of overall balance.
Yeah, too much exercise creates oxidative stress. And me saying that's not a reason not to exercise. You just don't need to be exercising for 2 and 3 hours a day. 30 to 40 minutes, 4 to 5 times a week should be plenty. So get out there, get your exercise, eat good, help maintain a healthy body weight. And one of the reasons you want to work on burning fat is fat can be inflammatory and it induces hormone imbalance just by itself. So hope everybody got some great information. Thanks for joining us. We're going to be sending out the replay. We look forward to seeing you next week in our next classes. So everybody take care. Anything you want to finish with? All right. Everybody, again, thanks for being here. Joe Lynn, we'll talk to you soon.